Hello from Hawaii. How is everyone doing? I traveled from Europe to Maui in the last couple days on Friday. It's a long trip, about 24 hours of traveling. I'm still a bit exhausted, still a bit tired. I've still got some bags under my eyes. Um, how's everyone else doing? There's no wind on Maui at the moment, but hopefully it comes. And yeah, I'm just getting back into the groove of Maui life. Got to get fit after my couple months in Europe without much windsurfing, getting COVID, all of the above. So my days here, even without wind, involve a lot of training, getting into it. Um, yeah, but I'm stoked to be back on Maui, to be here on the live stream, to see you guys. Hey, Tomas, Dum Dum, John, um, Dennis. Hey, everyone. And remember, if you're on Facebook, you got to give permission to the StreamYard app so that I can see your name in the chat. Uh, hey, Herman, Edwards, Hans. So like John, I can see your name, but then otherwise it shows up like this for me. And it's really easy. You just go in, you give permission for it to see your name, and then you show up uh, with your name. It's that simple. Hey, Philip. Yes, I see you. How's your face? That looked pretty owie. Um, for those of you that didn't see Philip's post, in the group, he got the mask to the face and had uh, quite a bit of swelling and bruising and blood. I hope you're feeling better. Philip is one of the rippers from Denmark. I love watching him sail. Philip, how's it going? Have you been working on that list? One of the things we did in the coaching is we came up with a list of moves for Philip to work on because Philip is really strong with his carving and other aspects of wave riding and looking for those next steps. And so we came up with some different things to work on, like one-handed cutbacks and clue first riding and some other things. So how's that going, Philip? Hey, Mark. Hey, Eric. Good to see everyone. Like I said, I'm back on Maui now. We had a long trip here with the family, which was mostly uneventful. There was a moment that was kind of stressful where I had this metal water bottle in my backpack on the airplane. And while I was putting, and I had my baby, we have our 8 month, 9 month old baby on me in like a carrier, and putting the backpack up into the overhead compartment. Somehow that metal water bottle, which is like one of these heavy metal water bottles full of water, fell out, hit the baby, and then hit the passenger in the seat underneath us. We were sitting on the other side. Um, and that was pretty dramatic. And the baby was okay. The woman had a bump, but then the airline called a doctor on the board to check out the baby because they didn't want to fly without doing that. So that was dramatic, but otherwise uneventful. Baby is fine somehow, luckily. And now there's no wind on Maui, big waves, and I'm just trying to get fit and get ready for the wind to come back. Hey, Brian, Mario, Jeff. Um, Snow is melting in Vancouver, but no wind forecast. Okay, keep us updated. Jeff had some east winds in the gorge. East winds. What does that mean? What does that mean? You're going out east as well with east winds? I can't remember what that means for the gorge. Does that mean you're out? What is that spot where you have to drive? You're driving like an hour east. Um, yeah, it sounds like a lot of you guys are cold water, cold weather, cold water. Not that much happening now. Hey, David. So we've got a lot of interesting topics in the group to go over. I've got this glare behind me. The sun is rising in Hawaii. I guess it's risen for a while, but it's coming up through the window horizontally. Um, so I've got some glare behind me, but it seems to be working. Yeah, so we've got a lot of topics to go over in the group. Hey, Jeff. Hey, Bart. So I've got one or two admin things to go over, which I want to kind of feel what you guys think, but I think I'm going to do it anyway, just to see um, how how it goes. Which is I want to start doing a newsletter, maybe monthly, that goes over, how do I say this? It's like an overview of my comments from the Facebook group. And the reason for doing it is that I feel like sometimes there's some really good discussion that goes on in the comments in the Facebook group, but then those comments get kind of lost, or if you're not following everything, you might not see them. And so, what I want to do is every month put together the topics that I find the most interesting, put my thoughts, so my comments so maybe it's the exact same text as what I wrote on some of the comments on a certain thread in the Facebook group, and I'll put that into the email and maybe some of the other people's comments, and talk about the discussion with a little bit of analysis on top of it. But pretty much just taking some of these conversations that are going on in the Facebook group and pulling them out of that format and putting them in a format that's a little bit easier to read, so that if you're not following every thread in the Facebook group, you can still catch some of these, or what I think is the most interesting discussion that went on that month. So to sign up for that, I'll do a post in the group, because obviously I need your email if we're going to do that. So I'll do a post in the Facebook group, and next week Sunday I'll put it in the live this chat, what we're doing now, because I know some of you guys are not in the Facebook group as well. All right, we've got a lot of stuff this week, so I think we'll just jump into it. Hey, Edwin. Yes, I am feeling happy. I'm getting better. My COVID is gone. I had this like infection in my nose post COVID. Yeah, I'm happy to be back on Maui. Yeah. Hey, Ragnar. Looks like you had a good vacation back home. Jeff, how was the sailing at Whitsands? That was for starboard tack wind, right? How do you feel with starboard tack wind? Dum Dum, I don't know about post voting. I don't know how that works. That's an interesting thing to look into. I have no idea. Hey, Bart. Hey, Eric. Gulf of Mexico 4-0. That sounds gnarly. Stay safe and have fun. That sounds intense. Hey, Marco. All right. I'm going to jump into the footage review. We've got a lot of great topics today, so I'm just going to jump right into it. As always, you guys can interrupt me, and we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. All right, so here's the group. Sorry, I'm getting this all set up, my Maui set up. All right, here we go. All right, so let's get into it. So here let's start off with this video from John. So John, next time, can you flip this so that it's horizontal? Makes it a little bit easier to watch. Also, John, I saw that you sent me some texts, and I didn't actually see them until just now. So I don't know how they got hidden. Sorry for not responding. This is funny. So this is a forward loop without the board. So John, were you trying to do the loop without the straps, which is a great exercise for learning forward loops? Or was it just an accident? Sometimes this happens to everyone. This happens to me. This happens to Ricardo. This happens to everyone sometimes, where your feet just slip out. And oftentimes if your feet start slipping out, you want to push them out because you don't want to have one foot stuck on the board. So this is a funny little no strap loop, which again is a great exercise for learning the forward loops. And it's part of the forward loop instruction that I think is really important. So where my coaching differs from other people with respect to the forward loop is I introduced the no strap loop very early into the process. And I like the Weimaru goose screw learning method that other coaches are also advocates of. But I've seen people get stuck in the goose screw, stuck in the Weimaru, and the hurdle to doing the loop somehow gets higher and higher and higher. And so attacking this rotational part as soon as possible and in a safe way, I think is really important to get through the fear. So the no strap loop is very important for learning the forward loop, in my opinion. All right, moving on. We got another post from John. So this is about going out. And so this is a topic that's not as exciting as forward loops or something else, but so important because if you're not able to get out, you're not able to have a session, right? And so getting out, getting around is hugely important in wave sailing. Hey, Sammy, welcome to the stream. So John's question is how to get out over this wave. So this is a bit of a strange whitewater with a kink in it. And so we can see there's an wave angle here that's different than the angle here. And so John decides to kind of shoot upwind and come over this section. So as I'm watching this, I'm not sure what I would do. I'm trying to kind of go over it in my head. The most important thing when you're going over a whitewater is that your board is perpendicular with the wall of the whitewater. So if this is the line of your board, right, from tail to nose, and this is the whitewater, you don't want it like this. You don't want it like this. You want to make sure that it's perfectly perpendicular, and that way the whitewater can just flow right under the board. Otherwise, if there's a bit of angle, the whitewater is going to push you back. And even if you make it over the wave, you don't want to be pushed back because you're losing speed, a host of other reasons. And so John does good to carve up and get the nose over the whitewater, more or less perpendicular. What I might do, and it really depends on the situation. It depends on what the wind is like, depends on what the current's like, depends on what I can see over the back of the wave. But what I might do in this situation is I might bear off more downwind to get more speed, because speed is your friend again. Speed helps you with everything. And going over whitewaters is no exception to that. So get a bit more downwind, try to pick up some speed, and then go over the whitewater at this other angle, because this other angle is a little bit easier to line up the board perpendicular with the whitewater, because this whitewater here is coming from such an upwind angle that you've really got to carve way upwind to hit that. Whereas if you're going a bit more downwind, then it's easier because it's kind of coming at you more. And I think you want to stay away from these middle sections because the white water is coming together there, and you might be fine, but there's more chance of something going wrong at this point where the angle is in the wave. So I would probably aim for the downwind part, but it seems like it works fine for what John is doing. And at the end of the day, that's what's most important. Hey Thomas, the one thing I would add, John, is it looks like you're not fully planing here, and you're pumping to pick up some speed and pumping to get out here. You're going, and I wouldn't be in the back strap. I think that if you come out of that back strap and you have your foot, so you keep your front foot in the front strap, but you have the back foot just in front of the back strap, you're sinking the tail a little bit less, and you'll get planing more easily and earlier, which gives you more speed, which makes this whole process easier. This is a theme that is really common. You don't want to get in your straps too quickly. And it can really help you to be out of that back strap in the front strap as you're going out, so that you're not sinking the tail too much. And so you can keep speed. Now, that said, I know that some people find it more comfortable to go over the whitewater in the straps because you have more control over your board. You can sink the tail to get the nose up and let the whitewater pass underneath. In which case, then you just put your foot in that strap right before you hit the wave. But you'd have the foot out of the strap, out of the strap, out of the strap. You're trying to pick up speed, maybe even out of the harness so that you can really pump the sail to pick up speed. Because again, the more speed you have, the better. So if you're out of the harness, out of that back strap, and you can really pump the sail forward. So not just with your backhand, and then you can even push also with your foot on the board to pump the fins. You can pick up some really good speed, which then helps to get over those white waters. So anyway, there's a lot of different things we talked about with getting out of the white waters. Number one is you want to be perpendicular with the line of the board with the line of the whitewater. Two is speed is your friend. So how do you go faster? That might mean coming out of your back foot strap. It might mean coming out of the harness so you can pump the sail more aggressively. It might mean going more downwind. And third is making sure that you're conscious of the whole situation, the current, the waves behind the wave that you're getting over, everything else that's going on. So in this example, it might work to go more downwind to hit the line of whitewater more straight on and also with a bit more speed. But you wouldn't want to do that, for example, if there's really strong current and then there's less wind downwind, and so it's really important to stay upwind. So there are times where you wouldn't want to do that. So you need to be very conscious of what the situation is, what the currents are doing, what the waves behind are doing. All right, let's move on. All right, this is John is a triple threat. We got third question from John in a row. This is about tripping the rail. Sometimes with loads of power, I can dig any sort of rail in, and other times I trip on the wave from mush to 2 meters, usually when really committing. I don't really know how to frame the question, but maybe top tips for getting more rail in and not tripping on the wave from cross on to cross off. So there are a lot of different reasons that you might trip on the rail or dig in the rail. And let's go through some of them. I think it is somewhat situation dependent, and so it's a lot easier for me to see video and say why you're tripping on the rail, rather than just talk about it in general. One reason that it can happen is if you're starting your bottom turn into a piece of chop. So if the wave isn't very clean, which, let's be fair, most waves that we're riding are not super clean. Whether you're on Maui, whether you're in Europe, unless you're in Cabo Verde or Mauritius or somewhere, most of the waves are not clean. They've got chop on them. And if you're not super aware of where you're doing your turn, and again, you want to do the turn where the water is as smooth as possible, as glassy as possible. If you're not very aware of that, it's possible that you can turn into a piece of chop, and then that will give you the sensation of tripping over the rail, because when you're digging the rail, but then your board hits the chop and stops essentially, and you fall on your face. So that's probably the biggest reason that this happens to people, is that they're turning into a piece of chop. And so again, it comes down to the fundamentals. The fundamentals of wave riding are so important. So that's wave selection, placement, and timing. And so making sure that you're not bottom turning into a piece of chop goes a long way. And we can rephrase that in a positive way, which is saying that you want to really be conscious of where you're doing your bottom turn and look for the smoothest part of the wave to turn on. And that will make a big difference. All right, some other reasons that you might trip on the rail is that you're pushing too quickly and too far back. So in general, when we're pushing, we want to have a gradient of of power. I think if you just put a ton of power, if you're going from flat to a ton of power on the rail, it often doesn't work, especially if you're doing it on the rear of the board, if you have a lot of back foot pressure, because then also the board, right, because the board has the curved outline, so then we put that pressure back, then the board is going to kind of bounce up like that with the nose pointing up. And you can see that sometimes when you watch people ride, where they put a ton of pressure and then the board kind of bounces up like that, and that can also lead to a kind of tripping. More often that leads to a bounce. So when you see people bouncing in their bottom turn, that's often why, because there's too much pressure too quickly on the back of the board, and so then it's, I mean, you think of it, right? The outline of the board is curved, so if you put that pressure on the back, it's just gonna rock up. And what are some other other reasons for tripping on the rail? I think the ones we've covered are the most common. Otherwise, it can have to do, hey Max, otherwise it can have to do with your setup. You know, some fins are really finicky, and they catch for whatever reason, and then you trip. And yes, I think that covers the most common situations. Let's see what people say in the comments. So Tomas is saying it really depends on the board, the rails, the fins, how much you push before it trips, how much speed you have. Yeah, like speed is really important. So the more speed you have, the safer you are in all of these situations. So the more speed you have, the less likely things are to go wrong. Because even if there is that chop there, normally you can cut through it or whatever it is. Rich, I'll check out that link in a second. I'm not sure the best way. I can't. I don't know how to pull out that link. Do you want to, Rich? Can you post that in the Facebook group, and then I'll check it out from there? Because I can't actually copy the link from the chat. I don't know why. So anyway, like Thomas mentioned, speed is really important. And then Thomas also says pushing down with the front hand helps somewhat. And here I think he's tapping into what we were saying before, is you don't want your weight too far back. And so really making sure that you're keeping that weight forward. And then, yeah, Mikhail agrees. Dom points out that maybe it has to do with being overpowered. When he has too much power in the sail or not going fast enough. Power stance helps as well. Yeah, I think these are good. Tavi's saying wider stance, take it slow. Another thing that I'll add that Tavi makes me think of here is you want to get low before you go. Get low before you go. So oftentimes we think about getting low in the knees for the bottom turn, and we get low as we're initiating the bottom turn. But if you get low before you go, so you get low in the knees before you initiate the bottom turn, so while you're still just thinking about the bottom turn, that helps with everything. It helps with your power delivery. It leads to a smoother application of that power. It allows you to absorb different different bumps or whatever in the surface of the wave. So getting low before you go can really help. Jan brings up an experience where he was trying to go more radical and then kept falling afterwards. I mean, he thinks he was pushing too hard and not doing it smoothly enough. Um, yeah, so I think there's some agreement here. So the number one thing, and I'll say this again, is you want to make sure you're not turning into a piece of chalk. Really making sure that you're turning on a smooth part of the wave. Making sure that your power is gradual, getting low in your knees before you bottom turn. The power stance, as was brought up here, I think also can really help, making sure that your hips are turned into the turn, because that helps for just smooth, good delivery of power into the board, but also that power is not too far on the tail of the board. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of different things we've talked about here. I'm curious. I want to hear what you guys think. I want you to pay attention to these things and see how it affects. Hey, Chris, how it affects your wave riding and your bottom turns, and if that makes a difference. Because I think this is really interesting, and it's a topic that is especially frustrating because it happens as you're improving, right? In the beginning of your wave riding journey, you're not pushing as hard, and this isn't happening. And then you start pushing, you start getting on the rail, and it feels like you're really improving. And then suddenly you've got this new problem where you're tripping over the rail. Shoot, how do you deal with it? And the last thing I'll say on the topic is it also happens to everyone. I've seen it happen to Polikow. It's happened to me. It happens to Robbie Nash. Everyone trips over the rail sometimes. Sometimes it just happens. But anyway, I want to hear what you guys think. I want to hear how my advice and the advice from the other commenters affects how you're sailing, whether you feel like you can apply it or not. All right, I'm going to refresh this page and see if we can check out the video that Rich posted. All right. Oh, there's me. So I can click this link. All right, let's see. Woof. Yeah, so this is a bounce. I mean, he's going over I would not even call that a chop. It's like he's going over a wave and loses connection with the water, bounces out, and then gets slammed by the lip. So this has a lot to do with placement, right? You can't bottom turn over this topology, right? Like this surface topology just doesn't work. And so what he needs to do is kind of bend his knees, drop in on this section, and then start to turn. And so try to keep contact with the water through the whole way. Ouch. I think that's Mark from Sailboards Tarifa, who is a young ripper from Spain. Hey, Caro. I hope you had a good wine tasting. All right, we've got another video I just saw from Sammy. This looks cool. Ooh. So Sammy, did you what happened with this one? Were you trying to go without the feet, or did you lose the feet in the rotation? Is this a different clip, John? Or is this the one we already went through? Oh, this is a different one. This is a new one. All right, so here's a forward loop from John. So John, I want to see you look back over your shoulder sooner. I think that's my biggest tip from this. And you're a good looper. You've got great loops. So I don't need to give you much coaching on the loop, but you'll notice a big benefit in looking back over this shoulder. So like looking right here where this mouse is. And you'll find that you have more awareness of where you are in the loop. you'll have more rotation and you'll land not very wet. You'll land on the board. But you know how to do it. I've seen you do it. All right, let's keep rolling through these. Sammy, how are your for loops? Do you want to talk about this one? Well, I can go through it quickly here. Looks like from the initiation, you've got good commitment. I want to see you again, also looking back over that shoulder. And then I think you could also keep your weight, which this might be, keep your weight a little bit more to the windward side of the board. So like your heel side. So right now you're very over top of everything, which then leads to more of a somersault than the spin loop. But it's hard to see just from the video, that video. All right. Let's keep rolling through these questions. We've got so many good ones. All right, Roy says, I bought a Decurve Quadster 86. It comes as a thruster, but I want to sail it as a quad. Which fins do you recommend for the board? Sailing North Sea, Netherlands, mostly medium waves. Thanks. So I would recommend the K4 fins. That's what I'm using. And I think you want to get, for these conditions and with that board, I think you want to get some of the stiffer fins that K4 makes. And so they make flexi models and stiffer models. You want to get the stiffer ones. I'm riding primarily thrusters, so I don't have as much experience with the quads, but I think the lay-on rears might be good for what you want for these conditions. I would, if I were riding a quad, I would be riding the Scorchers, but that's a flexier fin. It's a bit more turny, and for the conditions that I think you're describing on the North Sea, Netherlands, I think having the lay-on fin might be a bit better for what you want. And those are the rear fins. And then the front fins, I would do either the Sharks or the Ezzies. And the K4 fins are great. They're lightweight. They're cheap. You can experiment, play with them. So that's what I would recommend. But let us know. I think there's probably some other good options out there for the quad. So I want to hear what you figure out. I think we've got some good comments here from people. Carson is saying the Stubby or the Scorchers in their rear, which might be the right choice. I mean, I from what I see, I think the Leons are maybe good for these conditions, and you can go a little bit bigger in those sizes. They're more of an upright fin, but I think you want a stiff fin for the conditions that you're sailing in and with that board. All right. Mark says, what do you think determines a rider's style the most in windsurfing? Is it the rider's personality, aggressive playfulness, etc.? Physical attributes like body measurements, equipment, condition, or skill? Can style be practiced, learned, or is it something that just happens naturally without having much control over it? I love this question. And yeah, this is great. There's some good discussion as well. We've already got 31 comments. It's interesting. So we've got another user from Facebook saying that they have the Decurve 86 as well, the same year, but they prefer it as a thruster. So I was on Taboo at that time, and I was using all thrusters. So I have preferred Decurves as thrusters over the last 5 years or longer. I don't know how long I've been with Taboo. So I really like the thruster setups as well. And that's what I use. All right, so back to Mark's question. This is a very interesting question, and I think it's one that's not talked about. And I think that people, the general public, would be really surprised to know how conscious top riders are about their style and how defined that style is, and how consciously they're working on different aspects of style and paying attention to it. So, for example, when I was about, I don't know how old I was, maybe I was like 16. There were a few years where I was a teenager where I started to spend a lot of time with Levi Cyber. I knew him from the beach. We were kind of friendly and we became friends. And we've got like about a, I don't know, 9-year age difference or something. But Levi took me under his wing, and I couldn't drive. I could drive at 16, but I didn't have my own car. And so Levi would pick me up and we would go windsurfing together. And we'd go at Hokipo, we'd go at Sprex, we'd go jumping, we'd do other things. I'd hang out at his house. We were spending a lot of time together, me and Levi. And it was really interesting for me, especially at that young formative age, to hear Levi talking about style and how conscious he was of it. So he was watching snowboarding videos. He was watching a lot of snowboarding at that time and really paying attention to the body positions, the hand positions, how people were using their body, using their figure in snowboarding, and then talking about how he applied that to windsurfing. And he was conscious of the tiniest aspects. And so things about how he would position his wrist and fingers in one-handed maneuvers. And so you can see, I don't know if we can find, let me just see if I can find a Levi Cyber back loop. You can see it in his one-handed back loops, for example. I don't know if something is going to show up here. But he's super conscious of how his wrist is positioned, how his fingers are straight. And it reminded me of gymnastics or something, where the athletes are so aware of what their body is doing, and they're scored on, whether their toes are pointed and how their fingers are positioned. So like, I don't know, once you know to be aware of it and you start watching some of Levi's footage, you can see how consciously he's placing his fingers, his arm, whatever else. So, this is not a great example. This is just a random back loop. I wonder if we can find one, where we can find one. Because I think the one-handed back loop is one of the easiest examples. Maybe an aerial would also be good. You can see, like, here with like the head dip, and the way he's positioning his knees. And the point that I want to make in this discussion is that Levi is super conscious of how he's positioning himself, his hands, everything, style. And that was really interesting for me at a young age to see how conscious and intentional Levi was with his style. And it's true for all of the top guys. So another example, when I was doing a lot of stuff with Umi back in the day, so the Umi videos are still online if you want to check them out. In the Umi team, it was me, Alex Mussolini, Kauli Seadi, and Jonas Ceballos, and I think Victor Fernandez. Maybe Ricardo was on there too. I can't remember. And I remember these discussions about style, and there was a discussion with Kauli and Mussolini about style. And one of the things that they wanted to do was really up the drama. And so there was this talk of like the drama. Okay, how do you up the drama? And there was this feeling that they're always about to fall over. So this kind of like on the edge windsurfing, where it looks like when you do a maneuver or you're doing something that it looks like you're always about to fall, and you can heighten that sensation by how you're placing yourself, how you're doing certain things. So like, for example, I remember Mussolini talking about like taking his backhand off after landing a trick, so like landing a 360 or a taka in the wave, and how that like ups the drama of it, or sort of like it's I don't have a I got to pull up some videos to show an example. Like I think Cowley, you definitely see it in his wave riding. Is sort of, it looks like he's always about to fall, which then heightens the dramatic element of it. It's like, wow, it's on the edge, always about to fall, which again is this like conscious style, and it's not just in the technique; it's also in the equipment. So Cowley is shaping his boards also to fit that style. He's got these really curvy outlines and pretty short boards that are sort of always on the edge, always about to fall, more tippy. What am I trying to do with my style? Let me just say a few things about other people. Another thing that I hear pros talking about is like what you're doing with your legs in back loops or aerials, and there's different I don't know if there's different schools of thought. I think generally people consider it pretty ugly to be really extended on the aerials. Sometimes I think that can look interesting, but yeah, generally that's considered kind of ugly. um, and there's a certain fashion element to it as well. So like, for example, endo forwards are out of style at the moment, and so people want to see horizontal rotations in the forward loops, and so endo forwards are considered ugly. I want to talk about what I'm trying to do in my style, but first I want to address some of these comments. I'm not going to get into all of the comments because there are a lot, and I haven't posted on this. I'm going to do a written post as well to add my thoughts to the discussion. Dan says something I want to point out, though, because I think that this conversation can get a bit confused. So he says that, especially with top turns, for me, there's a huge difference in style with someone having more of a turn, release, almost stop, then accelerate again, a way of riding versus keeping the same speed through the top and the bottom turns. And I would say that this is not an aspect of style. This is an aspect of technical ability. And someone that's stopping at the end of their top turns is just not doing it very well. And you see this a lot in Tenerife with also some of the pros there, where they do these top turns where they blow the tail and then stop and almost have to pump back into the wave. And that's just a really bad cutback. Even if it looks dynamic with the tail flying out, it's losing connection with the wave. There's no power or flow. It's like fake power, because it looks like power because there's spray and the tail's going out, but there's no power, no real power, because it's losing speed. Um, so that's just bad technique. And someone else talks about the WSL guidelines of speed, power, flow, and how that defines style. And I would disagree with that and say that speed, power, and flow are about technique and how well you're riding a wave. And so the more speed, power, and flow you have, the better you're riding the wave. And within that, then there's style. And so I would say that speed, power, flow is an aspect of technique or technical ability, and style is something else that is on top of that. And so what am I trying to do with my style? And so I talked about Cowley was sort of like always on the edge, sailing, and he's shaping his boards around that way of riding. I'm trying to do something that's a little bit opposite to that. So I want to have a lot of confidence in my gear. So I'm riding slightly narrower boards, longer boards. I've got the thruster set up rather than the quad set up with the depth on the rear center fin, which gives me a lot of confidence. I want to be able to push on my board. I'm kind of a big, strong guy, and I want to be able to push. I don't want to baby the board. I don't want to worry that my board is going to slide out. I want to push hard, and I want to be able to push as hard as I want to push on my bottom turns and cutbacks and have the confidence in the board. And same, I want to hit big waves and not have to worry about the board sliding out. And so I want to have that power, but at the same time, I want to have a certain easiness to my sailing. So what I kind of love the concept of, doing a move that no one else can do, and you watch it and you think, oh yeah, that doesn't look so hard. I can do that. um, like doing a 360 on a double mass wave, or doing, these one-handed takas that no one else can do, and coming out of it in a way that doesn't look like it's hard. So it's sort of the opposite of upping the drama, like reducing the drama. I want to make it look fluid and relaxed. So that's something I'm consciously trying to do. And then, aside from that, where I'm talking about the technical ability, I'm really concentrating a lot on flow and trying to link turns, trying to keep a constant speed. But again, I would say that is not an aspect of style, more just ability and technique. And so if you see someone like starting and stopping on the wave, that's not their style. It's just bad technique. And yeah, so I'm trying to really flow, which makes me think of something that one of the old surfers, not a windsurfer, an old surfer on Maui, was talking with me about years ago. He was talking about style in surfing. He was talking about the Hawaiian style versus the Australian style of surfing. You have these two main schools traditionally, and now I guess you could say you have the Brazilian style of surfing. But anyway, if we're looking like 30 years ago, we've got the Australian and the Hawaiian style of surfing, or even 40 years ago, longer ago. And the Hawaiian style is more relaxed, more about flow, more about making difficult things look easy. And the Australian style is more aggressive, making things look harder than they are, and this like really aggressive attacking the wave. And this older surfer who I was talking with made the observation as well that Andy Irons, who's an amazing surfer, actually hails more from the sort of Australian style of surfing rather than the Hawaiian, even though he is a Hawaiian surfer. And like some of the examples he used of like Hawaiian surfing, you like Jerry Lopez, and I'm not sure who else he was talking about, but I really like this distinction, and whether it's totally true between Australia and Hawaii, I don't know, but I think it's an interesting distinction. That I think those labels are fine labels to put onto it, where this sort of Hawaiian style is more relaxed, trying to make difficult things look easy. Australian style is more aggressive, and I think there's merit to both. Right? Again, it's about style, not about ability. So you can have top ability and technical skill for both kinds of styles, and I like to watch both kinds of surfing. Yeah. Anyway, and so I'm definitely side more with sort of that Hawaiian relaxed style of surfing, but also I really like sort of this Australian approach to try and get as much out of the wave as you can. And as I get older and more, I feel like I've seen more and more surfing, I have more and more respect for it as well. Like I think growing up, I didn't really respect, for example, like Taj Burrows in surfing, and his ability to really link turns, or Mick Fanning as well, which I think is a really example of this sort of Aussie style surfing. And that sort of really linking maneuvers is something that really inspires me, and I'm trying to put into my own windsurfing. Anyway, so that's a little bit of discussion here. I'm going to write something up, and this is, I think, a really interesting discussion. Thank you, Mark, for asking this question. All right, Gabriel asks, what's a good entry-level board for windsurfing that accepts a foil? I don't know. We've got an answer from Tavi that follows this link. You can see some different boards that work for you. What's throwing me off with this question is entry level board. So Gabrielle, do you mean entry level like something to learn on? So like 150 liters, 160 liters, soft top board for learning to windsurf. They can also accept a foil, or do you mean something more like a Taboo rocket wide 130 liter that can take a foil? Yeah, what's throwing me off here is good entry level board for windsurfing. I think there's a lot of good options for free ride boards that can take a foil, and every brand makes one. I know like the rocket wide that I have from Taboo also will take a foil, and there's other boards also that Taboo makes and other brands make that fit this description. But what you mean by entry level, I'm not sure. Can you define what you mean by entry level? That will help maybe to narrow down what is good for you. All right. Samuel asks, what's your favorite setup for filming yourself on the water and why? GoPro, GoPro Max, or Insta360, Teletubby style, mass cam, boom cam, harness mount? This is a good question, and I will default to what other people think. So I have an Insta360. I also have a GoPro. I've got a harness mount like this. I have a helmet mount. I've got the unicorn mount from the Insta360 makes. It's like a stick that goes on the off the helmet and goes back. The harness mount, I think, makes nice video. I really don't like sailing with it though. Some people seem to like it. Like this picture from Rob looks great. I know that Steve Thorpe uses it a lot. I find that it makes, Dom Dom's got all these videos with the harness mount. I find it makes it a lot harder to windsurf with the harness mount, with that thing sticking out my back. And so I do it just to get footage for you guys. For sailing around, I find the helmet mount is the most comfortable. I think the mast mount is also comfortable and shows you a lot for improving. So I think it depends on what your goal is. And so if you're doing it just to improve, or if you want to have footage that looks great, because I think some of the mast mount footage is really good for analyzing because you can see your hands, your feet, and your head, but it doesn't show you what's going on around you. And so it might not be the most dynamic footage to show your friends. So I'm not really sure. And it's interesting to see what other people think. Again, we've got 26 comments on this thread. So a lot of good discussion from people with more experience than what I have. So again, my feeling, so this is, I like this, this view here we got it. Yeah, I like that perspective from the mast. It's good for learning, and this looks pretty cool. I'm going to do some more. So Tavi's got this setup he's using. I'm going to do some more filming on Maui now once the wind comes back. I've got all my cameras and harness mounts and everything. And I'll see. I'll do an update after doing my filming if I have more to add. All right. Truls has a question. We had the storm Gida hitting the middle west side of Norway. Unfortunately, a little wind got into the southernmost part of the Oslo Fjord, very westerly, and unfortunately a meter below what would have created some breaking waves. Making the most out of it, I was on a 4.2 and a Fanatic Stubby 89. Nearly nothing was breaking unless you were willing to break your fins on the rocks. I've been focusing the last year on moving my backhand forward earlier towards the harness lines in the top turn. This was one of the better waves. What can I improve to make these conditions look better? Yeah, difficult conditions. I can see what you mean with the wave not really breaking. And it looks like let's talk about what is working. You're really keeping your speed, which I like to see. So what can we do to improve here? So I would like to see you sheet out sooner, get some more distance between you. Hey, Samuel, some more distance between you and the sail, like we talk about, sooner. I can see you start to do that here, but I want to see that happening happening sooner. And one way to think about that is to think about initiating your bottom turn sooner. And so you're coming quite far in front of the wave. I'd like to see you stay closer to the wave in that turn and get more bend in your knees. And you want to get that bend before you go. So get low before you go. Get low before you go. Like you can just repeat that in your head like a mantra. Get low before you go. Get low before you low. So here you're still quite straight in your knees. And so if you're getting low before you go, it really helps you to apply that pressure. And so here you're getting some bend in your knees. You're putting that pressure in. And this, I know this board is quite back footy. And so some of the things we talk about in terms of power stance won't apply because you do want to have a lot of pressure on that back foot. But getting low before you go will really help. And then staying low. And if you kind of stay low in this bottom turn and really hang from the boom. So see, you're kind of upright. And what happens when you're upright is you're not really able to put that pressure on the rail, right? Because you're over top of the board. And so you want to be really low, get that butt low, hang your butt close to the water, kind of hang from the boom and really put that pressure on your heels. And for this board, it's going to be a lot on that back foot. And so again, you just don't want to be so upright. You don't want to be over top of the equipment. You want to be hanging down from the boom, knees bent, and get your butt close to the water. To really try and sink that butt. And so see how you're pushing your hips a bit towards the sail? You want to be doing the opposite of that and letting that butt hang low. And that will help to get a more dynamic cutback. But otherwise, it looks good. So I think that will help you see the biggest improvement. We've got a nice forward loop from that guy. So, Truls, how does that sound? I want to hear how that feedback says. This is a memorial for Carl, a member of our community who passed away recently. Here we've got a forward loop. I love how close you guys all sailed to each other, Rich. I like to see it. Yeah, nice forward loop. So, Rutgard, this is you on the forward loop, right? I don't think you're asking for coaching on the forward, so I'm not really going to give it. It looks good. Looks good. If you have any specific questions or you're trying to do something different, you're trying to land planing, let me know and we can go over that in a future coaching. I mean, this looks solid. I mean, there are different things you can do with your technique if you want to do a different kind of forward, but this is solid. Ryan, welcome to the group. All right. Have we caught up? Looks like we've caught up with everything. Wow, this was good job. I can't believe it. I was expecting the stream to go more than an hour because we had so much stuff to do, but looks like we finished everything in an hour. So I'm going to open it up to questions. And while you guys are thinking of your questions, I'm going to go over a few different updates and things that maybe we've talked about at the beginning of the live stream that you might have missed. So I'm going to start doing a newsletter, a monthly newsletter. So it's going to start monthly. I don't think it will be more frequent than that. And the idea is that there's a lot of good discussion that goes on in the Facebook group during the week. And I think it's difficult if you're not following every thread religiously to be up to date on everything. So I want to I'm going to summarize some of the topics that I think are the most interesting and my comments as well, because my comments get really buried in the group. And so then there's a record of that. So Jeff, yeah, I saw, yeah, we missed Jeff's post. So we haven't gone through everything. Huh, Jeff, I didn't see your post on the timeline just now, but I remember seeing your post. So let me try and find your post. All right, so Andrea says, as an architect, I have an eye for sales design. I love Ezzy sales, but sometimes I would love to see a radical change of its style and design. Do you ever consider making a change of style with it? Andrea, what do you mean? I'm curious to know what you mean. I mean, with the sales, they're very function focused rather than aesthetics focused. And if it works, we don't want to change it. And we're very active on the development of the sales, working on developing them for performance. So I'm curious what you mean by this, and if you mean something related to the visuals or something related to the performance. Is it aesthetics? Yes, you do mean aesthetics. So a lot of the aesthetics are driven by the function, actually. So where the panels are, and so there's a little bit of room to play within those boundaries with the sales. And I think we've been more conscious of it in the last few years. And I think the sales have, the aesthetics of this sales have improved in the last few years where we've been more conscious of the aesthetic element. But with the design process, the function comes first. But anyway, I think that in the last few years, the aesthetics have improved a lot, and it is something we're conscious of, but it comes second to the function. All right, I've got to find this post from Jeff. Stina, how are you doing, Stina? Have you been getting on the water? I heard that you've had good conditions up in Handstham. I hope it's been good. The PWA looks like we'll have Cabo Verde in February, maybe Pozo, but Pozo's a bit shaky looking. Tenerife looks solid in August, and then Silt in September, October. Small chance that Maui makes it on the calendar in November. But the ones that look the most likely are Cabo Verde, Tenerife, and Silt, which I think is a fine tour. It's really nice to have Cabo Verde back on the calendar. All right, so Jeff, all right, here's your post. So there's a video that you're talking about where I just have two straps on because the wind is light, and I just had the riding straps. And what year was this? Oh, this is in 2010. Yeah, this looks like a nice hit. I can't remember, Jeff. Were you down in San Carlos when I was filming any of these things, any of these videos? So this is one from the Umi days. And yeah, so 2010. Let's skip to the action. These videos are worth watching. I was quite a bit younger then. 2010. So how old was I? I was born in end of 89. So I was probably 20 here. So it would have been before my birthday. And yeah, I was here with my friend Brendan, who was the mastermind behind Umi. He made some great windsurfing movies. If you go to the Umi Pictures Vimeo channel, there's a lot of great content. And not just me. I mean, he did a lot of stuff with, like I was saying earlier when I was talking about style. Oops, you guys can't see my screen. Oh, I gotta change this. All right, here. This is. Sorry, I didn't realize I clicked off the screen share. Yeah, so this is San Carlos. Here, let's skip to the action. Yeah, so I'm quite a bit younger there. And yeah, so Umi Pictures, it's worth checking out their channel. Brendan doesn't do videos anymore, but he did a lot with me and Kelly and Mussolini, Traversa. I was 20 here. I was 20, and this was my first quad, I believe. I remember this board. I really liked this board. I think this might have been even my first time sailing it. The tricks have come a long way. Like at the time, this was pretty cutting edge for the takas and the goiters, and there weren't many people, or I don't know, maybe no one else really doing them so consistently in conditions like this. That's not true. Maybe there were a couple other people, but now we've come a long way with the tricks, and it doesn't look as impressive as it did 10 years ago. But I'm trying to see. So Jeff, you were talking about these super light wind days. I'm not sure where that video is. I can look it up. Oh, this I've only got 2 straps on. Yeah, I mean this I don't have the straps for going out because it was so light. I would never be in the straps. I've had a lot of light wind sessions. Sorry, whoever that is. I don't know if I cut you off or you cut me off. I've had a lot of sessions there that are super light, and they're too light even for the kiters to kite. San Carlos is an amazing place for learning to wave ride. I absolutely love it there. I haven't been for years. Stina says she had a nice wave jumping session Friday, some freestyle Thursday. Tomorrow looks good. Nice. Training front loops and aerials. Nice. That sounds good. That sounds good, Stina. I want to hear how it goes. If you get some footage, post in the group. This Arataka, I still remember. I was so happy with this one. And it was quite late in the day, and I worried that it didn't get filmed. Yeah, I was pretty stoked for that one. You know, in windsurfing, you have a few moves that feel like you'll remember for your whole life, and for me, this was one of them. There's something about the setup, the trip. I don't know, that Arataka. Something about it I'll always remember. Yeah, San Carlos is amazing. It's been a few years since I've been there, and I'd like to go back. I've just been so busy and doing other things, and it's not that easy to get to and be there, especially with the family now. It's harder to do long trips. I used to go for like 3 weeks at a time, whereas I think now I would just go on a forecast probably. Yeah. Nice. 4 good south swells this year. Is it crowded? What is the situation like down there? Are people sailing? David, I'm using pretty much all thrusters now. I really like the thrusters. I really like the. There's a few things I like about them. One is in the bottom turn, the quads feel like, for me, and I can see this also in other people's styles, it feels like they stop accelerating. So if this is the bottom turn, here, let me change the camera, make it a bit bigger. Okay, so if this is the bottom turn, the quads stop accelerating around this point and they want to go into the cutback, whereas the thrusters accelerate all the way up to 12 o'clock again. Also, having that extra depth really helps with stability, and so landing big aerials or hitting big lips really helps to have that stability. Whereas with the quad, sometimes when you hit a big lip with a quad, it doesn't project, it starts to slide on the lip, and I really want to get that projection. Or sometimes when you land, instead of continuing forward, it starts to slide and you lose the fins. So that's why I like the thrusters. Yeah, nice. It sounds like it was a good set year for San Carlos. Charlie, you want to see a one-handed taka? All right, let me see if I can find one. I should have one. So I won. There's one I used to win a one of the Maui Aloha Classic expression sessions, and I should have that somewhere here. Let me see. I'm just looking at my files. Let's see, where is it? Okay, I found one. So let me open this up, and then I will share my screen. So one-handed taka. So I was the first person to do these. Maybe I think a few other people have done them. I've seen Morgan. I've seen Morgan try them or do them. I've seen Morgan do them. Okay, how do I share this now? All right. And I was very inspired by Josh Angulo and some of the positions he would get on his one-handed cutbacks and one-handed aerials. So this is one. I won this this thing with this one. Yeah, Edward, come to Maui. So here I do this. Let's go. So I've done better ones than these, but this might be the best one I have on video. I'm not sure. I've got a few other ones on video too. I should look through and try and find whichever other ones I have. But this one I was pretty stoked because it was in a competition. Yeah. Cool. All right, guys. I think that we've discussed a lot. Yeah, so I'll see you next week. I'm going to sign off. I'm going to post about the newsletter in the group so you can sign up with your email. And you guys know the drill. Facebook group is here. You can post your questions, comments, videos, everything else. We've got a lot of good discussion going on. I really love seeing the discussion. I haven't been adding to it. I was super busy the last week getting ready to leave Europe for Maui, but I think I'm going to go through, and even some of the things that we've talked about in this live stream, I'm going to go and add some of my comments to, just so there's a written record there. And then I'm going to copy some of that as well and put it in the first newsletter, which will probably come out at the end of this month. But anyway, stoked to see you guys. Stoked to be here on Maui. And I don't know when the wind is coming back, so I don't have any. I don't know if I'm gonna have wind between now and next Sunday to get you footage. but I hope that we'll get some wind. And anyway, I'm going to continue my training and commenting in the Facebook group. I'll see you guys all next week, Sunday. Take care. Have a good week.